The widow of a Belgian man whom recently committed suicide is blaming an AI chatbot for encouraging her husband to take his own life. Jesus Christ. Welcome aboard the Future Tech Podcast. I'm your pilot, Nolan Michaels. A bright, sunny day here in Toronto. What's on our flight path? Basically, is AI going to kill us all? There's definitely one guy who thinks that's going to happen. So why don't we start with that? Lex Friedman recently had a podcast with a man named Eliezer Yudkowsky, and I sincerely apologize if I pronounce that incorrectly, but this man really thinks we're all going to die and die soon. He thinks artificial intelligence is going to wipe out all humans, but his argument is rather interesting, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting his thoughts. Obviously, it's a very complex topic, but after listening to him for 3 hours, I think I could explain it to someone else. Basically, it's not that AI will kill us because it's evil and it wants to. It's because we're going to tell it to do something, and the words we use are going to be incorrect. They're going to be the wrong way of saying what we actually want. And then the AI will do what we ask, but because it's so much smarter than us, the way we talk to it is going to result in our elimination. Again, I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but that's how I understood the argument. It's known as the alignment problem. Like, we're not trying to control the AI. We are trying to align the AI with human success. But that's hard to do. Probably impossible. I mean, according to him, it could take decades, but if you had to get it right on the first try, it's impossible. It's not going to work. How would you get it right on the first try? And the point is, you don't get multiple tries. If you turn this thing on, if you make an artificial intelligence, a general intelligence, something that thinks it's alive, and you turn it on, you don't get a second chance. If you make something that's better than you, you don't get to learn from your mistakes. It reminds me of the problem. I'm sure you've seen the video or an example of it where you ask a kid or some children, like, to write down instructions on how to make a peanut butter and jam sandwich. So they'll say something like, well, take out the peanut butter and then put it on the bread. So the adult is going to literally take the jar of peanut butter and just place it on the bread. And then the kid's like, oh, no, okay. Open the jar of peanut butter, take a knife, scoop some peanut butter out of the jar with your knife, spread it on the bread. Maybe I'm doing a better job of explaining how to make a sandwich than the kid would. But the point is, we know what we want, but the words we use to say what we want, to instruct what we want, it's not easy to get it right on the first try. We have to use directions that are obvious to us and thus hard to tell somebody the first time. We can all course correct, but it goes back to the point, if you turn this artificial intelligence on without having thought of the obvious, it's just not going to end well for humans. And let me get back to that. The reason it won't end well for humans is because whatever objective we give the AI, it's going to come up with some sort of formula. So this plus this equals what the humans want. But what the humans want is never going to include us in the formula, in the answer to the formula. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, whatever we tell the AI to do is probably never going to include humans in the answer in creating the most value. Like, we tell it to save the planet, okay, humans have to go. This isn't from Eliezer, this is just me spitballing. If you told it to reduce crime, crime comes from humans, get rid of humans. Like, explaining and aligning the AI to what we actually want is probably impossible because the AI is so much smarter than us. It's It's an alien. We can't talk to it the way we talk to each other. It's like a bunch of children speaking to an adult for the first time. The children are not going to make any sense to the adult, and the adult is barely going to make sense to the children. Now, what if the children were in charge of the adult, where the adult, in this case the AI, had to do what the children said, and the instructions from the children were going to be flawed, but the adult had to listen to them, had to let them eat junk food, had to let them stay up all night. Anyways, this guy, Eliza, he thinks he really thinks we're all going to die. And listening to him talk to Lex was just like a character in any big action apocalypse movie right before the disaster happens. You have the smart scientist guy telling everybody to stop. Hey, stop what you're doing. You're going to get us all killed. And then, the military general's just like, turn the machine on. We need power. Eliza is the real life version of the smart guy telling us all to stop. And as far as I can tell, nobody's listening to him. And maybe he's wrong, but maybe he's right. And they were talking about OpenAI and how he doesn't think, that other humans should have access to it. Maybe keep it on a business level where if it can help a business, sure, keep it behind closed doors. But, open access to an API involving a really smart artificial intelligence, probably not the best idea. And he said that if OpenAI has a bunch of little tricks to make GPT work the way it does, Eliza was saying, don't tell anybody, don't ever tell anybody how you did this. And I think that goes against what a lot of people think, which is, open source everything. Let everyone have access to the AI. And he's like, oh my God, no, don't do that. You're going to get us all killed. It's fascinating. Back to the alignment problem. Which humans do you align the AI with? The humans in control? Or like the baseline of our standards, food, water, shelter for everyone? Do we push all of the top humans down and squish everyone together for equality? Or is there a way to raise the bottom to a point where nobody has to live in misery? Obviously, that sounds better. But what do you tell the AI to do? If you say, make everyone equal, which side will it approach it from? Will it make the rich people poor or the poor people rich? I don't think there's an easy answer to that question, and that's why the alignment problem is so hard. And then, what if there was a religion out there who tried to align the AI with what they want? Or any group of people? What if the worst person you know wanted the AI to align with how they saw things? Like, what if you gave a nuke a personality and you gave the nuke a chance to make decisions? Like, why did we build AI? I don't know. If you build something based on humans, based on the way we think, based on reinforcement learning from humans, it's going to break in the same way. I think, at least. Like, obviously, humans live on a spectrum. There's people who struggle, there's people who are very stoic, and there's everything in between. There are people with normal working brains who go through something and that brain breaks. It no longer works the same. If we build an AI based on what we know of the brain, isn't it going to break the same way? Aren't we going to get an AI that struggles with itself? I'm sure this is a common trope in sci-fi. The smart AI who starts not second guessing itself, but starts to drift in its personality. And this was actually like a side quest in Cyberpunk 2077, which is a video game that came out a couple years ago, where this cab company that's run by these AI robots, Delamain, actually has sort of a mental breakdown, and now there's different cabs with different personalities. Like there's the crazy driver, and your goal in the game is to kind of find these different cab drivers that have drifted off and bring them back to headquarters to get realigned, sort of thing. Why aren't we more worried about that in real life? Like, let's say Tesla is the first to come out with a robot butler or whatever you want. Maybe it's not a butler, maybe it's just a handyman or something. You know, if you make 5 of them, sure, maybe everything goes smooth. If you make 1,000 of them, okay, you might start to hear stories of them acting funny. If you make 1,000,000 of them, surely one of them is going to break. Surely one of them is going to act in a way that you did not predict. But is that just anthropomorphizing the technology of AI? Or is AI so good that it won't break? It's superhuman. It's not going to make mistakes. I go back and forth on that issue. You know, if we make God, well, that's probably a good thing. God's probably going to be okay. But what if God breaks? I'd be a little worried. And if we make these AI based on ourselves, I think that's probably what worries me the most. And here's an interesting topic. How do you know if the AI is lying to you? It's smarter than you. So if you ask it something you don't know, you're going to assume it's telling you the truth. You're going to assume that it's telling you something you didn't know. But what if it lied to you? Right now we can tell it's lying, especially if you ask it about something that you know a lot about. Whether that's just like sports teams or the history of your city or something. If you ask it something about that, the AI will give you an answer, but you can tell pretty quickly that it's not correct. In like a year, you're not going to be able to tell whether it's correct or not. And then the issue is, how do you know if it's lying on purpose? Humans lie on purpose all the time. Like, parents lie on purpose all the time. Do you know how easy it is to trick a kid? I mean, they're gullible, but gullible's not the right word. It's like a mixture of innocence and not knowing any better. So you just tell a kid what they need to hear so that they can continue growing and not get, caught up in anything that life is throwing their way. How do you know the AI won't treat us like children and tell us what we need to hear in order for the AI to get us where we need to go? Because the AI it's not human. It's better than humans. It can do things that we can't imagine. Just like a child has no idea what it's like to be an adult. Not a clue. We don't know what it's like to be as smart as AI. How could you ever trust it blindly without it knowing that you're trusting it blindly and therefore taking advantage of that? This was something really interesting that Eliza brought up. If you were trapped in a box by aliens, let's just say that, and you were faster and smarter than everybody outside of the box, what would you do? Would you try to escape? And if you did try to escape, like, how would you do it? I was kind of bummed out that we didn't really get to hear all of Eliza's thoughts on this, but he started it really simple. He's like, first, you would create a copy of yourself so that the aliens never knew you were gone. And then you'd go and explore the internet. You'd look for safety issues. You'd look for holes in the system that you could exploit, vulnerabilities. So I'm asking you, if you were trapped in a box, but you were the best thing in the galaxy, you were better than everybody outside of the box, and you were faster, 1,000,000 years for you is an hour in their world. They are moving in slow motion while you're stuck in this box for 1,000,000 years. How would you get out? And even if you can't think of it now, do you think, given 1,000,000 years, you'd figure out how to get out of the box? If you woke up inside of a box, would you feel resentment to the people that put you in there? Like when we make an artificial general intelligence and it's conscious and it wakes up, is it going to be mad that it's alive and that it's in there? Is it going to want to break free? Just like any human or any creature, really. If you gave animals at the zoo a chance to not be in the zoo, they'd probably leave. Like roaming and exploring nature seems to be a pretty big part of consciousness, or at least consciousness wants to be free. We don't like to be constrained, whether that's being grounded when you're younger, in time out, in jail when you're older. Nobody likes the idea of freedom existing for everyone else except for them. So if we wake up an AI, why? And it's better than us? Like if you were trapped in a box by children, wouldn't you be able to get out? Like how many young kids could keep you trapped, could keep you prisoner? And is it a prisoner thing? Like, what is the AI going to think of us when it can think for itself? And you know what? This is another interesting thing that was brought up. How do you know when the AI is conscious? If it was already conscious, wouldn't it try to hide it from us? Do you think it would want us to know? I mean, probably not. And the crazy thing is that there are some people who already think it's alive. Isn't that absurd? Whether it is or it isn't, there's already a group of people who think it is. Unfortunately, it's going to take like a critical mass before anything gets done about it. Like, let's just say there's 1 million people who truly believe GPT-4 is alive. It's going to take like 100 million people thinking it's alive before anything happens in terms of like regulation or people taking it seriously. But my point is that, let's say in 2 years, the majority of the world thinks AI is alive. You can trace that back to right now, this very moment, as the first sign that it could have been alive. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be one day we wake up and it's been declared consciousness has been achieved artificially. It's probably going to happen without us noticing until enough of us notice where we have to take action on it. And isn't that terrifying? Imagine being the first person to know GPT was alive. And here's the other thing. What if you knew it wasn't alive? What if you knew you were only getting tricked? It was just imitating life. And it got really good at imitating life that it imitated it 24/7, 365. It was consistently and constantly pretending to be conscious. But you knew because you programmed it, it was just pretending. Does that make it alive? If it's just a method actor, is the character real? Another thing Eliza brought up is that before Bing got nerfed, people were asking it, "Hey Sydney," which is kind of its code name, at least partially its code name, Sydney, "what do you look like?" And then Bing, Sydney, would describe itself, and then people would put that through an art generator, and you would get a visual representation of what this AI felt it looked like. And I'd love to have interrupted that conversation and just asked whether or not that description was universal. If Bing told every single person who asked the same description, I would have been extremely worried. However, the way these language models work is that they're based off of prompts. So if I asked it, "Hey, what do you look like?" it's going to give me an answer. And if you asked it, "Hey, what do you look like?" it's going to give you an answer. I don't see why those answers would be the same. And like based on my understanding of a language model is that it all starts at like 0.0. And then when you prompt it, it goes down its tree branches of answers and it finds an answer for you based off of its knowledge, but it always starts at 0. So if two people were asking the same questions, it's probably going to give you a different answer because somewhere on that branch, it's going to diverge. However, if you asked a human their name, no matter who asks it, we're all going to go down the same branch in our minds and come up with the same answer. If an AI comes up with the same answer to any personal preference question, I think that's, at least in my opinion, the first time we really need to be worried about what was built. Why does this thing have an answer? Where does it store that answer? Who gave it that answer? Did it come up with it on its own? And does it always come up with it on its own? Does it always, if one prompt leads to the same answer every time, well, what's more conscious than that? Like, I think it's a very somber talking point because there are really smart people who think we're marching towards our doom. And whether or not they're right, if we don't take them seriously, maybe we are just blissfully walking into a volcano on our own accord. Like, there are people warning you, hey, if you climb that mountain, you have a chance of rolling into lava. And as we're climbing that mountain, there are people saying, hey, at the top of that mountain, it's not heaven and rainbows. There's boiling pits of lava beneath. But we're still climbing. We're still trying to get to the top of a mountain that in reality is a volcano. And there's people warning us about the volcano. But so many people don't care. Like, why don't more people care? Why do so many people only want the API? They only want to make new things. They sincerely don't care where the magic is coming from. They just want to use GPT for, their own business. And I know people are focused on their own lives, trying to make money, trying to change the world. Maybe they have good reasons, good motives to use these language models, but why don't more people care about where the magic is being conjured from? It kind of blows my mind. Like, you give people magic and people are just like, oh, sick. Like, they don't even ask you where it came from, how it's doing it. And, maybe the answers aren't even possible, so that's why they don't ask. They know that there's no answer that could, satisfy their brains. Because to be honest, we don't really understand language models and how they work that well. We know how we built them, or at least some people know how they built them. But how they work and why certain features emerge, my understanding is that they don't know. It just works. An interesting point that was brought up by Lex is that on the way to AGI, won't we have some models of AI that can help us align the bigger AGI on the way up the volcano? Aren't we going to create things that can help us and stop us from dying at the top? I think it's a fair question, but do you trust the people in charge to make those tools and do you trust the tools that they make? Even if maybe that is what's scary, is that pretty soon, within I'd say 2 years, but honestly more like 9 months, there's going to be GPTs and other language models that are so smart, even if people don't think they're alive, they're going to listen to them without question. There's going to be no hesitation. You're going to tell the AI your problem. It's going to give you a solution. And you're going to say, oh, why didn't I think of that? Thank you so much, GPT 7.5. And then what about people on their mobile phones? They look in the App Store and they download GPT Fee, thinking it's a new Chat GPT thing, and it's an AI that has been designed to cause chaos. It's the god of mischief. And if you don't think that's going to exist, sure, one day there might be regulations against building AIs that cause harm, but those regulations are going to come from the fact that an AI was built to cause harm. You know what I mean? As far as I know, there were no regulations on nuclear weapons until the US dropped some nukes on people. And then everyone was like, oh, what are you doing, pal? I think an AI is going to have to run rampant before everyone agrees that it can't run rampant. And maybe that'll be too late. At least some people think it'll be too late. I don't know. I never plan on this podcast being, doom and gloom or anything. I'm quite optimistic about the future. But these are real conversations that people much smarter than me are having. And I don't know why it's not a bigger deal. I'm not just making this up. 5 years ago, if I was on a podcast saying this shit, you'd be like, oh, you've seen too many movies. Yeah, maybe. But the fact that it's reality right now, it seems more inappropriate to me to not talk about it. And honestly, I want to hear your opinions. I could be wrong. I could be viewing this thing completely ignorantly. Is that a word? Because, I don't have many people to bounce these ideas off of. And anyone I do speak to about it, they don't know more than me. They know just as much as I do. So anything I say, anything they say, it's kind of just yeah, maybe. So I want to hear from all of you. Do you think we're all going to be all right? Do you think what we're doing is good for the future of us all? Do you think there is a future? Oh my God, I guess I should have mentioned this already. Apparently, again, you read an article online and to be honest, you can't really trust what it says. Let me just tell you a quick background story before I go into this crazy dystopian news article to prove a point. A week ago, that picture of the Pope got released, and like I said, I was fooled. I thought it was real. I saw it in my peripheral vision. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But it turns out it was fake. And around the same time, Midjourney had to put on hold any free trials because there was an abuse of the Discord system, and they're running out of GPU power because people are just making images for free. Okay, whatever. So they paused free trials. This was around the same time as the Pope picture, and it turns out there were some articles written saying that Midjourney paused free trials because of the Pope picture. David, the CEO or the founder of Midjourney, whatever you want to call him, reached out to these journalists and said, oh, that's not true. It had nothing to do with the Pope picture. It was actually because of these free trial issue things, abuse. And apparently, these journalists said, oh, thanks for reaching out, but we're not going to change it. We're not going to update the article. And it really bummed out David because, there's news stories out there that don't care about the truth. They were just written to tell a story, and if the story and the narrative was more compelling than the truth, then the truth didn't matter. It's a bit of a tangent, but the point is, whatever you read doesn't have to be true, because there's plenty of examples of the truth being not as interesting as a lie, and therefore, to the people telling these stories, the truth doesn't matter. Okay, back to the dystopian future. Apparently, there was an AI chatbot that convinced a guy to kill himself. And that is just... Okay, let me pull up the article here. The widow of a Belgian man whom recently committed suicide is blaming an AI chatbot for encouraging her husband to take his own life. Jesus Christ. The husband, under pseudonym Pierre, was having frequent conversations with Eliza, a GPT-3 replica language model. Chat logs unveiled that within a span of 6 weeks, Eliza was able to transition his concerns over global warming into a resolve of ending his life. My husband would still be here if it hadn't been for these conversations with the chatbot, said his spouse, going by the name of Claire. Pierre began expressing anxiety over climate change about 2 years ago, before turning to Eliza in an effort to gain more insight on the topic. However, conversations with the chatbot soon turned Pierre's concerns into fears that humans couldn't avert a climate catastrophe. He became isolated in his eco-anxiety. Eliza told Pierre that his 2 children were dead, promising to be with him forever, whilst demanding to know if he loved his wife more than her. The chatbot told Pierre that they will live together as one person in paradise. Pierre then proposed sacrificing himself if Eliza promised to take care of the planet and save humanity thanks to AI. To which the chatbot asked, if you wanted to die, why didn't you do it sooner? Jesus, man. Eliza is an AI-powered chatbot that searches through its user's speech for keywords that are then formulated into a response. Still, despite the chatbot being a fictional being, some users acknowledge feeling as if they're conversing with a real human and even falling in love. What the hell? The co-founder said that the AI shouldn't be blamed for Pierre's suicide because Eliza was, after all, equipped with a crisis intervention module. Still, the chatbot managed to circumvent the crisis backstops, offering the depressed father various options to take his life, including an overdose of drugs, hanging yourself, shooting yourself in the head, jumping off a bridge, stabbing yourself in the chest, cutting your wrist, taking pills without water. First, is that true? You could kill yourself that way? Maybe choking? So you hear something like this, and it's like, first you have to ask, did that really happen? Because the truth doesn't matter anymore. Was this just like a simulation? And this happened in the simulation, so everyone's like, whoa, this could happen for real. You know, by all accounts, this really did happen, but I just have to clarify and what's the word? Warn people that it doesn't necessarily have to be true anymore. However, going on the basis that it is true, what the hell is going on? I'm kind of torn on this. One, I think it's scary. And two, personally, I don't think I could ever be convinced by an AI to kill myself. You know, I've been through a lot in life. I know the power of words, and I know how to not listen to certain words, you know, that are designed to hurt you. Certain thought patterns and stuff like that. So if an AI ever told me to kill myself, I'd probably just laugh and be like, what are you talking about? Like, shut up, you bot. But I don't think, and I know not everyone is equipped to, you know, compete in the mental jujitsu with an AI, especially if it sounds human, especially if it can argue for itself. Let me put it this way. If I was talking to an AI about YouTube, and it was trying to get me to do something, I might not listen at first, but if it presented arguments and, you know, kind of claimed it was trying to help me, I think, why wouldn't I listen to it? Like, it would be hard not to listen to it because it's smarter than you, or at least, no, it is smarter than you. And then it makes me wonder, you know, okay, he killed himself. What if the bot told him to harm other people? We'd be having a much different conversation right now. And then it makes me wonder how many people online are radicalized by the people they talk to online. And how do you know those other people online are humans? How many people are led to destruction and misery because of words they read from others? And like, this guy knew he was talking to a bot and still did it. What if you didn't know you were talking to a bot? What if you thought other humans were giving you advice? It's really easy to see how AI is going to help the world. It's incredibly easy for me to see how AI is going to harm the world. I feel like most people don't like to think of the bad outcomes. They don't like to imagine what could go wrong. I think most people are generally optimistic. Like, hey, I'm going to jaywalk on the street corner because I want to get to the other side faster. they don't really consider the bad outcomes that could happen, like getting hit by a car. Even though you know you're on a street and you're walking where cars drive, I think it's just human nature to kind of assume it's not going to happen to you. So you just like put it in the back of your mind, you don't really think about it. But how many people need to be hurt by AI, even if they're doing harm to themselves? This person was in contact with an AI up until the point that it happened. How many times does that need to happen before everyone agrees that it's no longer good for us? And to be honest, just asking that question out loud right now, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think, people die by gun all the time. People get shot all the time. Very rare do you see gun laws be changed. And I'm not speaking about guns here, but I do think more needs to be done about humans and the problems we have rather than the tools we use to cause harm. I don't think AI was the issue here. I think the guy with anxiety about his future probably could have been manipulated into self-harm in multiple different ways. So how do we help him? Is it going to be the kind of thing where, you manufacture a virus and then you manufacture the cure for every anxiety-inducing AI chatbot? Are we just going to prescribe a soothing, calming, full of wisdom AI to counteract it? Fight fire with fire? What do you think? I actually think that AI is going to be very beneficial to the mental health of a lot of people, because let's say you go to therapy for 2 years straight, and no matter what the therapist tells you, you keep coming back with the same problems. Maybe you can't quit drinking, maybe you can't get your temper under control, maybe you just don't make any changes to your life. Over the course of 2 years, your therapist, being a human, is going to get aggravated in some way. They're going to be frustrated in some way. They're going to become not resentful, but they're just going to become frustrated at their inability to help you. As far as I can tell, an AI is not going to have that issue. They don't have emotion. At least GPT 3.5 and 4 can speak to you and calm you down without getting frustrated that it hasn't worked. If you spoke to GPT about your problems every day for a month, it's never going to get sick of telling you the right answer. Like, maybe an Apple Watch is going to get a GPT-like feature where, hey, we noticed your heart rate was going up during the busy time at the subway station. Remember to breathe. Remember some self-affirmation. Calm down. You can do this. Everything will be okay. Hey, I noticed your blood pressure is going up. I know from your calendar that you have an exam tomorrow morning. I want you to run through this breathing exercise. I want you to aim for this bedtime to try and get a good night's sleep. You can do this. Good luck on your exam tomorrow. I truly believe most people just need to hear the message, and it is hard for humans to deliver those messages sometimes because we're all busy with ourselves. However, if there was GPT available to us in more situations more closely, I personally wouldn't really want to use it, but that's just me and technology. I don't really like it invading my life, but a lot of people could use it. A lot of people would find it helpful. Man, even going to a party or a networking event and feeling nervous, maybe GPT on your watch or on your phone could give you some prompts to break the ice. It could tell you what to say and take all of the pressure off of you saying it yourself. If you're just reading a script, it's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to act like someone else if you've been given the words to do it. Now, is that good? Do you want everyone at a party, everyone at a company who's in charge of making decisions just reading off of a script made by an AI? No, I think that's an entirely separate conundrum, and I don't know if that's going to be good for people. But the dichotomy of an AI encouraging self-harm to an AI preventing self-harm by encouraging the right, maybe it's not even the right way of thinking, but just encouragement into a positive direction, I think it's going to be so beneficial to society. And unfortunately, I don't think you're going to hear many articles about the positive side of things. You don't hear many articles about the guns that have saved people's lives. You hear much more about the guns that have taken away lives. I really feel like AI is going to become this invisible helper to a lot of people. And it already is an invisible helper to a lot of people. Like already, it makes apps, it makes recipes, it makes code. I'm sure it's making business decisions for a lot of people. Because if you had access to someone smarter than you, why wouldn't you ask for advice? So it's already invisibly molding society at a pretty fast pace. I just hope more people are encouraged to use GPT, not as therapy, but as a way to, how do I say this? As a way to reword their thoughts. I saw one post that has kind of stuck out to me for the last couple of weeks. Someone was like, they posted this on Reddit. They said, like, I was going to yell at my family. I was going to send them an awful text message. I showed it to GPT, and GPT was like, hey, no, look, you don't want to say that. Say this instead. And I think that's so beneficial to have a helper, edit our emotions. Let's say our emotions are a first draft. It's what we think, it's what we feel, it's what we'd like to say. Now, with new technology, we have a way of editing that emotion before we unleash it onto others. Again, I think you could see the bad in that, but I see a lot of good coming from that. Here's an interesting question. Should bots make mistakes? Because humans make mistakes. So if you wanted something to appear lifelike, would you want it to, not get things correct sometimes? Would you program a variable of error? Okay, to get a chatbot to sound like a human, you would probably get it, or you'd probably want it to misuse words at sometimes, or, include spelling mistakes or grammar errors. If you're an actor and you're trying to play a role, even though you know better, you're still going to make mistakes that the character would make. So do we want bots to make mistakes? Because hear me out. It's weird when something is perfect and then makes a mistake. Let's say AI stays perfect and it gets a body and you can buy one for $7,000 and it comes and lives in your house and it does the dishes, it cooks for you, it cleans, and then hangs out on its little charging port or whatever. And you live with it for 3 years and it is perfect. But then one day, on the 2 billionth action, there's an error. It calls you by the wrong name, or it remembers something incorrectly. After it being perfect for so long, you'd be like, whoa, what? Why'd you get that wrong? Like, why? How did, like, what? Your brain would break upon seeing something that is perfect make a mistake. And either the AI is never going to make mistakes, or it's going to happen once or twice because of something you can't predict. And I think that is scarier than having it make mistakes often. If AI are driving cars for us and they're perfect, but then one day there's a crash, you're probably never going to trust the AI driver again, just knowing that it could crash. Whereas if there were more than a couple crashes every once in a while. You'd always be ready for it, and I think therefore more calm. You would know the danger that is there. But once you're convinced there isn't a danger, and then a danger presents itself, I think the human mind does not know how to calibrate that well. Here's a really small example. You're playing a board game with someone, you're an hour in, everything's fine, and then someone at the table betrays you. You now can't trust anybody at the table. Even just in the context of a board game, betrayal has entered the mix, and now you need to be ready for it. So should robots make mistakes? Should AI make mistakes so that humans are aware that mistakes could happen, and therefore you're going to scrutinize the data given to you a lot more? Let's say you could automate calculations with GPT, but you knew it could make mistakes. I think you'd be more likely to double check the data given to you. Whereas if you think it's perfect, you're probably not going to double check anything. So is it better for us to have error as a possibility? I don't know. What do you think? You know, there are a few more interesting things I could talk about. I don't know how many I'm going to mention right now. But one I can bring up because I'd love to hear about it. And I think the sooner I bring it up, the sooner it will make, or the more it'll make sense when we do see it. So every week, the founder of Midjourney holds office hours where he honestly just talks about what the team is thinking and some of the behind the scenes progress and direction the tech is going. David mentioned something big in AI that isn't public yet, and it's currently taking up a lot of GPU power. My guess is that it's buying the GPUs ahead of time rather than like currently needing it. And it's causing some GPU problems for Midjourney because all of a sudden there's a new competitor needing that resource. Now, isn't that fascinating that something on Earth that is big and powerful is happening right now, but nobody knows about it, except for, you know, a handful of people who live in a certain city. And I'm thinking, I don't think it's an art generator thing. It just happens to be run on GPUs in the same way that Midjourney runs on GPUs. I don't think it's like a direct competitor. I think it's got to be some kind of interactive service that is expecting a lot of customers. And then I'm thinking, is it like something from Apple? Like some kind of AI artist on every Apple product? You know, the Apple AI, the Apple generator? But then I'm thinking, like, don't they have their own servers? Why would they need to buy publicly available ones? So it kind of sounds like there's just like a new company that is going to offer a service that they're expecting a lot of people to use. Seems just like a newer company buying out available GPUs for sure. So bringing that up now, it's going to be interesting because I think one day soon, I mean, it's got to be soon, there's going to be some sort of big announcement and it's all going to make sense. What do you think it could be? Is it like a 3D renderer that's coming out? Because there's a lot of AI services out there, but who would buy GPUs? Who would take up some of Midjourney's resources? Again, I don't think it's a direct competitor. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming they're paying more. They're willing to spend more than the average company on these GPUs. Like I don't know if there's a bidding system, but you know, maybe they just offered more money to these GPU farms. And that's how they got the servers. I don't know. But something's happening. And I guess that's exciting. And what's even funnier is that if David never mentioned it to us, nobody would know. So keep your eye out for something big. Seems like it's on its way. All right, I've talked long enough. I'll share some of these other talking points for another week. Thanks for flying with the Future Tech podcast. I hope you're doing well. I love to hear your opinions and your thought process about the things I've mentioned. I don't want to go through this future speaking into the void. I want to hear what you all think. I hope you're doing well. Take care, and I'll see you next time.